The first clip came through while I was fixing the string lights above the altar. No subject line, no name, just a file called "Play Me Before You Say I Do." I stood there, phone in one hand, zip tie in the other, staring at the screen while the video buffered. There were people behind me sitting up the chairs, laughing, unbothered. It was supposed to be a warm-up day, casual, just close friends. But my chest tightened before I even hit play. When I did, the world shifted. It was a dark room, bass vibrating through walls, bodies pressed together. And there she was, in the center. My fiancée dancing like no one was supposed to see her. Not me, not her parents, not anyone outside that room. Her dress, or whatever that thing was, didn't cover much. There were hands, multiple. Someone poured something down her back and licked it off. Someone else pushed her up against the door and she laughed like it was the best night of her life. I dropped the phone. It clattered against the wood floor of the barn. People looked over. I waved them off. Then the second video came through, and then the third. By the fourth, I couldn't breathe. She wasn't just dancing, she was celebrating. The captions were worse than the footage. One last ride before vows. He still doesn't know. Tag your soon-to-be hubby. Someone had recorded the whole thing and sent it directly to me, stitched together like a documentary of betrayal. I didn't say a word to anyone. I walked to the end of the aisle, stepped outside the barn, and kept walking until I reached the edge of the parking lot. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just opened our shared calendar, scrolled to the wedding date, and hit delete event. Then I called the rental company, canceled everything in her name, and sat on the back bumper of my car, staring at the trees like they could explain what had just happened. That night, while everyone else thought I was rehearsing my vows, I was in a roadside motel 2 counties away, using the last of my cash to pay for a room that smelled like cigarettes and bleach. She called 17 times. I answered none of them. The morning of the wedding, I left my phone in the motel drawer and took off. No note, no suitcase, no answers. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I wasn't marrying someone who needed to go out and feel free one last time without telling me. But that wasn't even the worst part. That came later, when I learned who filmed it and why they wanted me to see it. By the time I made it to the edge of the state, I'd gone through every possible explanation a man in my position could come up with and discarded them all. Drunken mistake. That doesn't explain the grins, the planned filming angles, the hashtag she wrote herself. Peer pressure. Then why did she look so at home? Like that wild, unfiltered version of her had just been waiting for an audience. I spent the night at an old motel across from a bait shop. The guy behind the counter handed me a key and said, "We got bed bugs in 3 and a family of raccoons in 7. Don't take either." I took 12. The mattress folded like paper under my weight, but at least I could finally sit still without someone knocking on a door asking if I wanted cucumber water or wedding-themed cupcakes. I stared at the ceiling for hours. My mind ran loops like a scratched record. Every time I tried to imagine her walking down the aisle in that ivory dress, my brain substituted the red strobe lights from that party and the sound of some guy calling her baby girl while she didn't flinch. That video was seared into my skull like a brand. But here's the thing that wouldn't leave me alone. Who sent them? None of the people I knew would do something like that. Her friends love her. Mine didn't even follow her on socials. So I did what anyone would do. I pulled the files apart. I'm not a tech guy, but I know someone who is. His name's Cole, and he used to jailbreak iPhones in high school for $20 and a Red Bull. We hadn't talked in a year, but when I texted him, I got sent something I wasn't supposed to see. He replied with just a location pin and a skull emoji. We met at a gas station near the county line. He brought his laptop, asked for Wi-Fi and nachos, and got to work. Airdropped? He asked. Yeah, at the venue. That's insane. Someone had to be right there within Bluetooth range. I hadn't even considered that. Whoever sent the files was physically at the barn while I was up there fixing lights. That meant they watched me, watched my reaction. Whoever it was wanted me to see, wanted to shatter everything. But why? It took Cole 15 minutes to scrub the metadata. Then he froze. What? I asked. He didn't answer, just flipped the screen around. The file wasn't random. It had been stitched together using footage from 5 different phones, synced and edited on a single app. One of the phones was mine. That was impossible. I hadn't taken any footage. My phone was in my back pocket the whole day. But when Cole pulled up the timestamp and location logs, the evidence was brutal. Someone had airdropped the video from my own account. I sat back in a plastic chair outside the station and felt the cold punch of something deeper than betrayal. Not only was I cheated on, not only was I lied to, but someone had used my digital identity to deliver the wrecking ball. And then the worst idea hit me. Melanie had access to my phone. Not just the password, full sync backup, Apple ID, the works. I remember the night I helped her log in to check the shipping status of some shoes she was obsessed with. Back then, I thought it was cute that she was comfortable enough to share everything. Now, it felt like I'd handed a loaded weapon to someone wearing a smile. Can you trace the edit? I asked. Cole shrugged. I mean, I could, but it's not legal. Just hypothetically, he smirked. Hypothetically, your account was accessed from an IP address at 11:32 a.m. yesterday. That IP came from the Four Palms Resort in Clearwater, Florida. I blinked. She said she was at her cousin's apartment helping with wedding invitations. Dude, she was poolside, and based on this geotag, she's still there. I had no plan, no script for what a man's supposed to do when his wedding is less than a week away, and he finds out his bride-to-be is in a resort miles away partying like she never said yes. I didn't even know how to feel anymore. I just knew I wasn't showing up for that wedding, and I wasn't going to stay silent. I didn't head to Clearwater because I wanted closure. I went because I needed proof. Proof that I wasn't insane. That the woman I was supposed to marry wasn't just wearing 2 faces, one for me and another for the rest of the world, but that the whole thing had been rotten from the start. I wanted it to hurt. I wanted it to be sharp. I needed it to bleed so I could stop pretending it was a paper cut. I drove through the night, one hoodie, a duffel bag, and a stale taste of gas station coffee keeping me awake. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. What was I supposed to say? Hey, I'm crashing my fiance's secret vacation 4 days before our wedding because someone edited a highlight reel of her grinding on strangers in a costume shop and sent it to me via my own Apple ID. No one's built to receive that text. The Four Palms Resort was tucked between palm trees and midlife crisis convertibles, a place with flavored water in the lobby and concierge employees trained to look through you like a polite ghost. I didn't check in. I parked across the street behind a mini-mart, threw on a baseball cap, and walked in like I belonged. The pool was the first place I looked. Laughter, sunblock, the sound of someone's Bluetooth speaker playing a song I used to slow dance with her too in our living room. I scanned the chairs, the umbrellas, the cabanas, and then I saw her, or so I thought. White swimsuit, brown hair, that same body language, like she owned the whole place. She was sitting with 3 men sipping something out of pineapple. One of them had his hand on her thigh. She didn't move it. My legs moved before my brain caught up. I stormed across the concrete like a man possessed, No plan, no lines rehearsed, just pure heat. But when she turned, it wasn't her. Not even close. The girl blinked. "Do I know you?" I stopped mid-step, the weight of humiliation crashing down like cement. I apologized, turned on my heel and headed toward the bar. I needed to think, or drink. Maybe both. The bartender asked if I was okay. I said I was looking for my sister, which was somehow less pathetic than my runaway bride. He nodded like he heard all the four. Then he said something that hit me like a slap. "She was with the redhead earlier. They left like 20 minutes ago. Took the elevator up with some guy in a backwards hat." I froze. "The redhead?" "Yeah," he said, already pouring another drink. "That loud one. Called her Melly the whole time. Melly. That's what her old college friends used to call her. She hated it. Claimed it sounded like the name of a farm animal. Only 2 people had ever called her that to her face. One of them I met once briefly at her New Year's party. A redhead named Rowan who always smelled like cinnamon gum and smoked American spirits out the window. She was supposed to be in Oregon. Apparently not. I followed them upstairs. No, not in a horror movie kind of way. I waited near the elevator bank, watched the numbers light up, then casually walked up the next flight. 4th floor hallway with a view of the pool. Soft carpet that muted my footsteps. I had no idea which room was theirs until I heard her voice through a cracked open door. Not yelling, laughing, and then something else. Something worse. A male voice. Too familiar. "You really think he won't find out?" Her answer. "Even if he does, it's too late. You know how he is. He'll write a poem about it and disappear into the woods." And they both laughed. She knew me too well. That was the moment I knew she wasn't sorry. Not for the party, not for the lying, not even for getting caught. She'd weaponized who I was. The soft parts, the quiet parts, and turned them into the punchline of a joke. I should have left right then. Walked away with what little dignity I had left. But I didn't. Instead, I slipped my phone from my back pocket and started recording. Not for revenge, not to post online or shame her family, but because I needed to hear it again later, when doubt would creep in and try to convince me I overreacted, when the part of me that still loved her would start whispering excuses. I stood outside that room and recorded everything. Their voices, the admissions, the smugness. And then I walked away back to the car, back to the road, back to the version of myself I thought I lost when I met her. That night, I deleted the contact, turned off my location, canceled every shared account. I even called the florist and told them to give the bouquets to a hospital instead. And when her mother called the next morning, hysterical, confused, begging for answers, I simply said, "Ask Melanie about the pineapple drink and the guy with the backward hat. That should clear things up." Then I hung up. I didn't need her to understand. I just needed her to know I knew. I thought she'd look for me immediately. She didn't. Not after the videos. Not after the unanswered calls. Not after I vanished mid-rehearsal week with no explanation. Left her to face the guests, the questions, the flowers meant for a wedding that no longer existed. It took her 5 days. 5 days of silence. 5 days of her mother leaving voicemails that swung from teary to furious to bizarrely condescending. Like I was the one who needed to apologize for the inconvenience of my own humiliation. When she finally resurfaced, it wasn't through a text or a knock on my motel door or a desperate email begging to explain. It was through my older brother Clayton, the only person I trusted enough to tell where I was. I left my phone behind, but not before giving him a burner number in case something serious happened. He called from a gas station that evening, his voice tight. "She's at my house." My chest went still. She showed up in full makeup, crying, asking if I've heard from you. "She's saying you've had some kind of mental breakdown, that you vanished after a dream. that she's worried you're, quote, doing something dramatic again. I clenched the motel blanket in both fists, heart thudding. Did you tell her where I am? Clayton laughed, that bitter, disappointed kind of laugh he reserves for only the worst types of people. No, but she's laying on thick, Ellis, talking about how much you mean to her, how excited she was to be your wife, how this is probably just cold feet. She even tried pulling out her phone to show me old texts you sent, like some kind of scrapbook of affection. She's gaslighting you. She's gaslighting you, bro. Then he paused like he wasn't sure if he should say what came next. She's not alone. I froze. What do you mean? There's a guy in her car. He hasn't come out. I saw him through the window when she pulled up, bearded, muscular, sitting in the passenger seat like he's waiting for her to finish the performance and come back with your location. It hit me like a freight train. The man from the resort, the one with the backwards hat, the one who'd laughed when she mocked me outside that hotel room. He hadn't just been a one-night thing. He was with her now, helping her chase me down, not for love, not for closure, but for control. That was the moment I knew I had to burn the past down, piece by piece. Don't open the door again, I told my brother. Not for her, not for him, not even if they say it's life or death. This isn't about confusion. It's about erasing the version of me they think they can manipulate. That night I drove to our old apartment, the place where we hung string lights over the bed, the place where she made pancakes barefoot in the morning and played podcasts while brushing her teeth. I still had a key. I'd never taken off my ring. I didn't go inside to scream or break things. I wasn't there for revenge. I was there to take back the parts of me I'd left behind. A few notebooks, a backpack, a vinyl record she hated, my grandfather's old lighter. And then I did something she wouldn't expect. I left something behind. A small envelope. No address, no note, just a flash drive inside. On that drive was every file I've been sent. The videos, the audio from outside the hotel room, the metadata that proved it had all been planned, edited, uploaded, sent by someone with access to my cloud. Her, no comment, no explanation. Just the truth, unfiltered, raw. Let her sit with it. I didn't want to see her reaction. I didn't care if she screamed, cried, tried to play the victim. I just wanted her to know I hadn't run because I was weak. I left because I had finally learned how strong I could be when I stopped hoping she would become someone she never intended to be. She would find it. She would watch it, and she would realize for once I had nothing left to lose because the old Ellis, the one who forgave things just because the pain of confrontation felt heavier than betrayal, he died somewhere between the barn and that motel. An aversion who walked out. He wasn't coming back. The email came 3 days after I left the flash drive. It wasn't from Melanie's usual address. It came from an account I didn't recognize, one that barely even looked like a name, just numbers and initials like a burner made in a rush. The subject line was simple. Let's be adults about this. I almost deleted it. Almost. But curiosity is a slow poison. I clicked. Nothing. No mention of what she'd seen or what she'd done. Just a long, carefully worded message written in a tone I recognized immediately. Not the Melanie I fell in love with, but the version of her that showed up when things didn't go her way, rehearsed, manipulative, smiling through a clenched jaw. She said she had seen the flash drive. She called it a sad misunderstanding and described the videos as taken out of context, the audio recordings as deliberately edited, and the party as a harmless escape with friends before a major life commitment. She used the phrase emotional sabotage more than once, as if I had somehow orchestrated a smear campaign against her by watching her with my own eyes. And then, Buried near the end came the twist I wasn't expecting. She admitted that she had edited the videos, but not to hurt me. Her words, "I was trying to put something together as a fun surprise, something you'd laugh about when we were old. I didn't know it would get out of hand. I didn't expect you to take it so personally, like it was a prank, like it was a gift I unwrapped wrong." She ended the email with a proposition, not an apology. She wanted to meet. No public drama, no fighting, just one adult, dull conversation before we made a decision we might regret. I read that line 10 times, not because I was tempted to respond, because I couldn't believe how she'd taken what happened, the lies, the cheating, the cover-up, the chase, and reframed it as a communication breakdown between two people who love each other too much to walk away without clarity. It wasn't guilt. It was marketing. She was rebranding betrayal as confusion, infidelity as performance art, my silence as emotional instability, and worst of all, she was winning because no one else knew what I knew. Her parents still believed the wedding was postponed for health reasons. Her friends were texting me half-sarcastic things like, "You better not be getting cold feet." She had already begun her campaign, smiling selfies on Instagram, quotes about healing privately, and vague captions like, "Some journeys are walked alone, but always with love." It was surreal, watching the person who broke you try to sell the world a version of events where you were simply confused, and she was the one holding everything together. But here's where it got worse. 2 days later, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. It was her father. He sounded tired, flat, like he'd been rehearsing. He said he was disappointed, not angry. Said Melanie had told him everything, that I had somehow found footage from a bachelorette party and spun it into a false narrative. He said he hoped I'd come to my senses before it was too late, that families could still be built, that people make mistakes. He never asked me what happened. He'd already been told. That's when I understood what she was really doing. She wasn't trying to win me back. She was trying to control the ending. Because people like Melanie don't panic when the truth surfaces. They adapt. They shift. They get ahead of it. And if they can't make you look like the villain, they'll settle for making you look unstable. I deleted the email. I saved the voicemail. And then I did something she never expected. I agreed to the meeting, but not for reconciliation, not to talk, not even for revenge. I had something else in mind, something final. Because if she wanted to sell a lie, she was going to have to sit face to face with the one person who still remembered the truth. The meeting wasn't my idea, but I chose the location, neutral ground, a place that smelled like cold coffee and industrial carpet, a half-empty co-working space that used to be a dentist's office. The windows were frosted, the chairs were plastic. It felt like somewhere people signed quiet paperwork, divorces, lawsuits, custody agreements. Perfect. She arrived 5 minutes early. I watched from my car, hair straightened, by eyes covered by glasses that were more fashion than function. She wasn't dressed like someone meeting an ex-fiancé. She looked like someone showing up to negotiate a settlement. She didn't come alone. A man followed her in. Mid-40s, polished silver tie, the kind of briefcase that doesn't carry paper, just presence. He nodded at the front desk, said something quietly, and she laughed like it was an inside joke. I knew then this wasn't going to be a conversation. It was going to be a show. I waited 5 more minutes, made them sweat, then walked in with nothing but a phone in my back pocket and an old spiral notebook in hand, the one she once doodled hearts in during a road trip through Michigan. When she saw me, she smiled like nothing had ever happened. Ellis. She said my name like it was a question. I didn't answer. The lawyer introduced himself. I didn't shake his hand. We sat at the far end of the shared conference table. The lights buzzed overhead like they were allergic to silence. Melanie opened a thin folder and pushed it toward me. "It's not legally binding," she said quickly, "just a mutual agreement. So, we're clear on what gets said after this. You know, for family, friends, online stuff. I figured you wouldn't want this to spiral into something toxic." There was the play. She didn't want an apology. She didn't want forgiveness. She wanted control of the narrative. Something she could hold up when people asked, "Why did the wedding fall apart?" Something polished and neutral she could show her parents, her friends, future boyfriends. I didn't touch the folder. "Did you watch everything?" I asked. Her expression twitched just slightly. "I watched what you left," she said. "I think we both know it doesn't show the full picture." "I didn't need it to," I replied. "I only needed it to show you what I know. Not them, not the world. Just you." The lawyer shifted in his seat. "Our goal here, Mr. Langford, is to avoid any form of escalation. You've been understandably upset. We've been informed of some unfortunate data leaks, some edited content that's spread among mutual acquaintances." I cut him off. "Nothing was leaked. I haven't shown it to anyone but her." He looked at Melanie. She looked at me. And then she did something unexpected. She dropped the mask for just a second. "I panicked," she said softly. "I didn't know how to handle what you saw. I didn't know how to stop it from destroying everything. So I spun it. I made up the story. I told them you had a breakdown, that you ran away, that you couldn't handle stress. I didn't think you'd disappear." The room went still. Her voice wavered, not from guilt, from fear. Not fear of losing me. Fear what I might say next. I let the silence breathe. Then I took out my notebook, opened it, and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. It wasn't legal. It wasn't dramatic. Just one paragraph written in my handwriting with my name signed at the bottom. It said, "This is to confirm that Ellis Langford formally withdraws from any legal, financial, or emotional entanglement with Melanie Crowder. The wedding is canceled. The engagement is nullified. All plans, expectations, and commitments are void. Any further attempt to contact Ellis Langford privately, publicly, digitally, or through third parties will be considered harassment and treated accordingly." I slid it across the table. No folder, no signature from her, just the truth written in ink. She stared at it. Her lawyer said something about tone and reasonable expectations. I stood up. Before I walked out, I leaned close enough so only she could hear. "You didn't just lose me, Mel. You lost the version of me who would have still defended you after all this. You don't get to spin this. You don't get to repaint it in pastel and call it growth. You don't get to be the one who walks away clean." Her eyes flashed. Maybe anger, maybe grief, maybe just the shock of finally realizing the last hand she'd played didn't work. Then I turned, walked out the door, and didn't look back. Outside, the air felt different, like I'd finally stopped carrying something I didn't even know had been strapped to my back for years. And as I started my car, I realized something. She hadn't come to make peace. She'd come to make sure I stayed silent. Too bad, because I wasn't done talking. It started with a photo. Just one posted to her Instagram 4 days after our meeting. She was sitting on a dock, barefoot, holding a glass of wine, looking off into the distance like a woman who just survived a hurricane and found inner peace on the other side. The caption read, "Some storms come to clear your path. Thank you to everyone who supported me during the hardest week of my life. The truth always finds the surface. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't accidental. She knew exactly what she was doing." Within 12 hours, I got 4 texts from old friends I hadn't heard from months, all asking some variation of the same question. "Dude, what happened?" Then came the pity DMs, the LinkedIn message from a former colleague who wrote, "So sorry to hear about the wedding. If you ever want to talk, I've been there." And the one that really set my stomach spinning, a post from her cousin publicly tagging Melanie and writing, "You deserve someone who sees your worth. Proud of you for walking away." Walking away? She hadn't walked away. She'd thrown the wedding off a cliff and then staged a memorial service where she got to deliver the eulogy as the grieving widow. That night, I sat in my car outside a 24-hour laundromat, watching as the machine spun clothes I didn't care about anymore. My phone buzzed nonstop. People want to know why I'd vanished, why I was silent, why I'd left a woman like Melanie in tears. The smart thing would have been to stay quiet, let the fire burn itself out, start over. Let her wear the mask as long as she wanted while I rebuilt somewhere far away. But there was one thing I couldn't shake. She was weaponizing my silence. She was counting on it, banking on it. She knew I wasn't the type to air dirty laundry. She was betting I'd rather disappear than explain. And the truth is, she was almost right. But not this time. I opened my notes app. I didn't plan it. I didn't rehearse it. I just started writing. It took an hour. I posted it at 3:12 a.m. on a private account I hadn't touched in years. The one I used to share sketches and old song lyrics. The caption was simple. "There's a version of this story you haven't heard." And then I dropped the full post. I didn't include names. I didn't post videos. I didn't expose details that could get flagged or reported. I simply told the truth. How I'd been sent footage from someone I still believe was trying to save me. How I'd traced the videos back to our shared account. How I'd stood outside a hotel room and listened to the woman I was going to marry joke about how easy I was to lie to. How she'd spun everything to her parents, to her friends, and now to the world. I ended it with a line that wasn't dramatic, wasn't cruel, but hit harder than anything else I've ever written. You didn't break my heart. You just made me realize it wasn't mine to begin with. Within 6 hours, the post had over 4,000 shares. By noon, people had figured it out, not because I named her, but because she'd been so loud about her pain. So obvious with her timing that the internet connected the dots without me ever drawing them. She deleted her photo, then her caption, then her entire profile. I thought I'd feel something when that happened. Vindicated, relieved, maybe even proud. I didn't. I just felt empty. Not the kind of empty that makes you want to curl up and disappear. The kind that tells you something heavy has finally been removed. The kind that lets you take a full breath for the first time in months. Later that week, I got a handwritten letter in the mail. No return address. I knew it was from her. The second I saw the cursive inside were 3 things. A photo of us from 2 years ago taken in the fall before anything broke. A single sentence. I still don't know why I did it. And a check. It was for the exact amount we'd spent on the venue deposit. I didn't cash it. I didn't respond. But I framed the photo not out of nostalgia, not to remember her, but to remind myself of one simple truth. Even the most beautiful pictures can lie. I never responded to her letter. I never wrote back, never cashed the check. Never made a playlist about closure or took a trip to find myself. I just started living again, slowly, quietly, without the need for grand gestures or digital announcements. Because healing isn't cinematic. It's not dramatic. It's not a 5-minute montage of tearful nights and rooftop sunrises. It's forgetting what day it was supposed to be when the wedding would have happened, and realizing it doesn't matter anymore. It's walking into a bookstore without flinching when someone asks, "Are you single?" It's hearing her name in a conversation and not feeling like a knife's been slipped between your ribs. It's watching a couple laugh in a parking lot and not imagining what they'd say if they knew how fast it could all burn. It's just peace. One ordinary, imperfect, beautiful day at a time. I move into a new place 2 towns over. Small porch, crooked mailbox. No memories in the walls. I started painting signs again, real ones for small shops with too much charm to care about fonts. I kept my phone on silent more often. I read more. I slept better. Then, one morning, something strange happened. I was having coffee on the porch when a woman jogged past with her dog. One of those fluffy golden doodles with eyes that always look like they're about to ask a question. The leash got tangled on my mailbox. The dog jumped up, and before I could react, she was laughing and apologizing at the same time. We untangled the leash together. Her name was Nora. She lived down the street. She asked if I was new in the neighborhood. I said yes. She said she hoped I was sticking around. It wasn't magical. It wasn't fireworks or violins. It was normal. And after everything I'd been through, normal felt like a miracle. We talked for a few minutes about books, local coffee shops, dog names. She didn't ask about my past. I didn't volunteer it. And when she walked away, I didn't feel the need to look her up online or second-guess the way she smiled. I just watched her go and thought. That felt good. Not because she was my next chapter, not because she healed me, but because for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel broken. And that's how this story ends. Not with a wedding, not with revenge, not even with a dramatic confrontation on social media. It ends with a man on a porch holding a warm mug, finally understanding that love doesn't have to be loud to be real, and that peace isn't something you find in someone else. It's something you give yourself when you stop chasing the version of your life that was never meant to be. And in that silence, you begin.